All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and in this video, I'm going to very easily debunk the notion of Elijah debunking the Baal worshippers. And even though I believe in God, but I'm not a Baal worshiper, so don't misunderstand. But I'm going to prove that the Baal worshippers are still around and have not been debunked and done away with, even though they're wrong. And I'm going to prove that Elijah calling down fire to consume an offering is not a miracle. That it's actually a secret chemistry experiment that's actually very easy to replicate, and I don't need anything except exactly what he did in the false miracle. I'm not going to add any chemical. Like I've seen scientists try to disprove Elijah's miracle using naphtha or salt or something like that, and you don't need any of that. All you need is exactly what's in the book, because the author of the book accidentally left a clue or two that what he did was in fact nothing more than a chemistry experiment and not a miracle. Whoever wrote the Book of Kings left a clue that meant that he already knew it was an apothecary trick, an early chemistry experiment, not an actual miracle. All right. And calling down fire to consume people, believe me, that doesn't work. You can try it. It doesn't. Does not work either. All right. But anyway, so in the alleged miracle, Elijah rounds up all the Baal worshippers and he challenges the Baal worshippers to sacrifice to Baal and call down fire from Baal. And he's going to sacrifice to Yahweh and call down fire from Yahweh. And he makes the claim that if fire falls down from heaven and burns up his sacrifice, that proves that he is a true prophet and Yahweh is the true God. And it proves that Baal is the false god and the other people are false prophets. As we all know, that's the story. So there are several steps in Elijah's supposed miracle, because supposedly to prove that he's not fake, he's going to wet the sacrifice to make it where it ought not burn, right? Because everybody thinks nothing burns in water. Well, that's the claim, but it's actually a deception from Elijah, all right? Because Elijah was also a false prophet. He just happened to beat the other false prophets this time. And I'm going to prove that he was a false prophet. Because I know exactly how to perform that miracle without God doing it and just make a chemistry experiment using exactly the same things he did in the story. All right. So it says he took stones and made an altar out of stone, and then he put wood on the altar and he put the burnt sacrifice on the altar, and he covered all of this with oil, and then he poured 7 baths of water. He put this in a pit, by the way, and then he poured and submerged it in 7 baths of water. Seems like it shouldn't burn, right? It's completely submerged in roughly, I think, 420 gallons of water. I think that comes to, if I did the math right, something like that. Well, there's a problem. This is a very deceptive charlatan's trick. And he was pretty sure that the Baal worshippers weren't educated enough to know what it was. But whoever wrote the story of in the Book of Kings was educated enough to know what it was, and he knew that some other Jews were educated to know that it was nothing more than a charlatan's trick. So he added the claim that the stones were uncut stones to try to disguise the fact that this was in fact just a charlatan's trick. It doesn't matter whether the stones are cut or not. If you know where stones are that have enough sodium or potassium in them, you can make an altar out of sodium or potassium covered in oil, and then put wood and your sacrifice on it, and then you cover it in 420 gallons of water or any large amount of water, and voila, start praying, oh dear God, send down some fire. If you're the true God, and the oil will float up in the water eventually and come off of the sodium and potassium stones. And then we all know from high school and college chemistry that sodium and potassium burn in the presence of water spontaneously, and they burn violently and ridiculously hot. And it would give the appearance that fire had come down and consumed even the very stones and dust and water and the wood and the sacrifice and the oil all at once. And it burns violently and explosively, and in a way that an uneducated person has never seen before. So I have just told you how to fake Elijah's miracle to the letter. And I swear to you, if I went to Jimmy Swaggart's church and replicated that, and I can, and it's not a miracle, and I'm not claiming that it's a miracle, it doesn't make me a false prophet. It makes me a true prophet. But if I went to Jimmy Swaggart's church and put this in his baptismal tank, I could do it, and half of his church would bow down to me and think I was God in the flesh just for copying the miracle, because it's not a real miracle and it never was a real miracle. It's a complete fraud, and I know exactly how to copy it. So then another false prophet comes along a couple hundred years later by the name of Malachi, supposedly, and he claims that Elijah is going to be sent back from the dead at the end of the age. Well, then a couple hundred years later, along comes Jesus, and the disciples asked Jesus, "Why has Elijah not yet come?" Since Malachi said that Elijah had to come before the end of the age. And Jesus is like, "Oh, Elijah has already come back. Didn't you realize?" And then the disciples are like, "Well, he must be saying that John Baptist is Elijah." That's in the book, the Gospel of John, so called. So Jesus then claimed that John Baptist was the reincarnation of Elijah. And I do not believe that for 1 second. Because, first of all, I just proved that Elijah's miracle is not a true miracle, because I know exactly how to replicate it with the chemistry, with exactly the same setup that he had to the letter. But Jesus, according to John, according to John the Beloved, so called, claimed that John Baptist was the second coming of Elijah. And yet it tells you that John Baptist performed no miracle. Why would the real God send a supposedly miracle working prophet back to live on earth a second time, and then have the supposedly miracle working prophet perform zero miracles and admit that he performed zero miracles the second time he was here? Why do that? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So all of that is a lie.